Hi, who are we? So, I'm Grifter. I have been involved with Black Hat or taking care of the technical operations for Black Hat for all the shows around the world for the last 16 years.
I'm Bart, or Stump as some call me, and I have been around 11 years riding this guy's coattails, so.
So we got involved long ago when honestly this show was 250 people. This show was that's about the size for any regional show. It was when we used to be in Amsterdam, which I miss greatly. Nothing against London, but you know, Amsterdam. The U.S. show at the time was also about 1,000 to 1,200 people. Now the U.S. show is about 20,000. So the network has morphed and changed to adapt to those things, and we're the guys who do that. We don't do it alone, though. So in the early days of Black Hat, we used to roll everything our own, right? So we just bought consumer equipment and we tried to make things work. The first Black Hat shows that I was involved in, we had like a Cisco 2600 and then some Cisco APs with the external antennas you would tape on the walls. So we had that going for us. And then we had to keep scaling things. At one point we were shipping 65 SOCRIS boxes to whatever show we were going to, running OpenBSD and PF, and writing custom scripts for them to call home and tell us they were alive or what was going on the network. That didn't work after a certain amount of time. And so a few years ago, Bart and myself said, man, we really need like enterprise grade gear. Like this network is just, it's too hard to keep it from tipping over. Maybe we should go down to the expo hall and ask a vendor down there if they would be willing to like give us some gear, right? So that's what we did. We went down to the expo hall and we talked to the first vendor and we were like, so hi, we run the Black Hat NOC. And we were wondering if you would be interested in helping us with, and they were like, yes, And so we're like, cool, all right, cool. This is gonna be fun, right? So then we were like, let's go shopping. And we like wandered the expo hall and talked to the different folks who we wanted to work with. And everybody said yes, they wanted to be involved. So it's been great. So they are partners, they're not sponsors. They may be sponsors of the show, but they're not sponsors of the NOC. They actually, no one can pay to have their equipment be part of the NOC. That is a decision we make as a NOC team and decide what we're gonna bring in. And that has changed over the years. There are vendors where the technology didn't do what we hoped it would do, or it didn't scale to what we needed to scale to, or in some cases they just had overexcited marketing teams who wanted to say that they ran the NOC at Black Hat, and then now they're not involved at all. So
we can't have nice things.
Yeah. So it's like, get your marketing teams in check, or they will spoil your technical relationships. So we, like I said, we had to scale. These are the folks that we're working with today and have been working with. I think it's this crew for the last two and a half years. We get some of their A-list players, their top folks, come out and help us out in the NOC. So we actually do work side by side with their folks to make everything happen. It's been pretty awesome. That's us. Oh my gosh, we are so good looking. So that's it. That's the entire NOC team for this show. We took this picture yesterday. Again, filling all of those NOC partners as well as some of just the core Black Hat team that comes out and does it. So let's get into it.
So we told you guys we're going to talk about architecture if you came to any of our smaller ones as well, and there it is, you guys. That's what holds it together for you.
He never does architect he does like these really elaborate, beautiful designs for the U.S. show because there's so much stuff.
Thanks for covering for me.
It looks like like you have to have that, and then for the regional shows he like draws it on a napkin. So I just started putting this in, and just this show he was like, all right, I'll start doing this.
So to that extent, and we'll cover it a bit, I mean, everything's pretty fluid, and there's a lot of things that change, whether we get on site and something breaks or doesn't break, or it was expected or unexpected when we run a new version one place and not another, then there's certainly issues that we run into. So I'd be rewriting that diagram 22 different times, and we kind of understand, and it's fluid more. But obviously the complexities of the U.S. show with that, it gets a lot more in depth. But to that point, here's the architecture basically that we have at this show. So basically what everybody does, and we showed the partners here, Palo Alto runs our core. We have two PA3250s in an active passive H8 pair. Cisco provides us with Umbrella, the OpenDNS acquisition, as well as ThreatGrid that will detonate any of the malware or anything else that we need to, and can interact in those sandboxes with that malware. To kind of determine that good bad versus bad as we'll talk about here in a little bit. Ruckus provides all of our wireless throughout the venues. We have 28 APs from them with 2 controllers running that. RSA brings plenty of gear to basically, they provide all of our forensics. We run the NetWitness suite. They provide our forensics. As well as endpoint on the registration machines and a few other things that we'll get into. Tons of gear that they bring to capture all of the packets that traverse the network while on site. We'll also dig into that, and I'll explain a bit to you on that. And then Gigamon provides our tapping solution to provide those feeds into NetWitness, as well as other open source tools that we have, and we'll show you some of that.
So what's cool about this gear, again, is all these folks bring it. And we don't have like a real, it's not like the best looking setup back there, hiding behind the dividers. We have literally put the gear on luggage carts in the past. I think the RSA gear, it's sitting on a pallet, like a wooden pallet on the floor right now. So we're talking about probably when we're all said and done, $1 million+ worth of equipment, and it's sitting on the floor.
And there's like a little oscillating fan that's like that.
It's blowing on it.
Trying to keep it cool.
But, so we're super ghetto. Yeah. And then we have things happen like, we plug all this equipment in. Now, we asked for a certain number of amps, from the venue. We're like, this is what we're going to need. We're going to be running a lot of equipment. But on setup day, pop! We blow the circuit and everything. It got real quiet in the NOC, right? All the fans turned off, all the beeping stopped. And we were like, whoopsie. So we needed more power. They came and gave us that. So now we're up and running and everything seems great, right? Then the ceiling starts to drip.
This isn't
onto the gear.
Literally water was...
if you stop by the NOC, it's a relatively large room, right? The water was dripping directly above the equipment, right? So
you don't make that up.
Yeah, you can't plan for these things. You just kind of have to adapt. So we got a bucket. We got a bucket. Yeah, like literally, we moved the equipment over about a foot.
Put a bucket
and then
there.
put a bucket there.
What would you do?
I was like, I didn't pay for this. I'm teasing. Please bring your stuff back, guys. I swear. We take good care of it. So you may have seen, if you poked your head in there, we like shiny things. We have a lot of different dashboards and stuff going on. These particular dashboards were set up on screens that you could come into the NOC and look at throughout the show. And the data was updated in real time to show what was taking place on the network. What you saw in the middle there going pew pew, everybody likes the pew pew, right? What it is here, let me start it again. The green, I'm going to break it now. There we go. The green data, this is just the active hosts on the network. So these guys are awful chatty, right? So we're taking a look at that. The green is TCP, the red is UDP. ICMP will be reflected in white. And what we use this for is just watching if something lights up like this or it gets wider.
The size of the dot also represents the size of the packet.
So the amount of data that we're seeing. So if we're seeing somebody trying to DOS something or somebody just super abusing the bandwidth, then it will...
Scanning the network.
Yeah, it will light up really significantly. And so we know, like, hey, we should maybe take a look at what they're doing. Or when we see scans, what it actually looks like is a starburst, right? Because it's hitting a bunch of different hosts, and so one host is just And so we just say, hey, look, there's somebody looking for something to do.
Quick visual feedback, obviously, whether or not we need to dig in more.
Well, I should also say, so the format of this is we're going to try to run through these slides relatively quickly, and then we try to give, most people give 5 to 10 minutes for questions. We try to do like half the time, and we'll get that answer for you.
So these are some other dashboards that Ruckus provides. Basically, this is a spectrum analysis between the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. Again, you can it's not necessarily anything that's going to tell us, oh, somebody's hacking somebody else or anything to that extent. It's quick visual information that we can glance at as far as the dashboard goes, and then look in further if we need to, if there's any issues, and obviously dig in with our other tools and forensics and get to there. But speaking of Wi-Fi,
very good.
Here's basically all the quick stats that we got from Ruckus and things that we saw. So basically, again, we had yes, set it over there, please.
I'll drink it.
My bad.
You go ahead.
1,100 plus unique devices. Again, all of this depends. You guys jump on the Wi-Fi, whether it's laptops in the trainings, phones, tablets on the general Wi-Fi. Everything is on the wireless at that point. We don't have wired connections here in these shows. Busiest device hit about 50 gigs, which is kind of small in some extent. Busiest room, it's always SID, advanced infrastructure hacking. They were doing some fun stuff, and we can dig in. You can see other clients, the amounts on each SSID, et cetera, and basically the information we saw there. So a healthy amount of stats. I wouldn't say that anything abnormal that we saw. More iOS than Android, more Windows than Mac, and a whole bunch of Linux mixed in.
All right, so these are our DNS stats. So again, Cisco with Umbrella, we're getting all kinds of good DNS data. What we see, and I know it's hard because this projector's bulb is going out, but it's 7 million DNS requests for 2018. So that's up from 5.6 in 2017. So more traffic, more going on there. And what we see up here is the stuff that we essentially allowed, right? Those are things that we would go, like in a normal environment, you probably wouldn't care to allow that. But once again, this is Black Hat, so hashtag YOLOSEC. And
we haven't really mentioned that, but we block nothing outbound of this network because of the types of traffic that you're going to see flowing from labs and everything that happens in trainings, et cetera. If we were to block normal malware or potentially harmful traffic that everybody else would see in a normal environment and block, we don't, because we'd ruin a training or we'd ruin someone's lab down at Arsenal or whatever the case may be at that point. We allow it to go unless otherwise needed.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes we do have to do that, and we'll get into that a little bit later. I like this GIF. I'm going to talk about the GIF. I like it because it's like, oh, it's going to evolve, and then it doesn't. So it's like, it makes it like, you're like, come on, like, there's no payoff. It just like,
you are Magikarp, just a floppy
fish.
It
just pissed me off. So I put it in there. So that says ever-changing goals. So when we initially started doing the network, the thing that we really wanted to do was just get it stable. So when Jeff Moss, who at the time was the owner of Black Hat, called me up, I had volunteered at a single Black Hat show prior to that. And he said, hey, we liked you. We want you to come and run the network. You can bring a team of people or whatever. I brought 2 guys, which was a mistake. There were 3 of us running the entire network.
Way too many people.
But the big thing was like trying to keep the network up. And that first year at the US show, I had a 15-minute outage over the entire length of the show, which I guess is pretty good for a conference. And then especially that conference, that 15-minute outage was one of the trainers was showing off a 0-day in his class. And when I happened to check on the class at one point, he was like, hey, did the network go down? And I was like, I hate you and your mom. So stability is huge. We want to make sure you guys can actually use it. From a security standpoint, our crown jewels to us is the registration system, right? We don't want your information getting out there. If somebody pops reg and now all of the private information of the foremost information security people in the world is now out there, I guess Black Hat has to close its doors, right? So
It's a bit of pie on our face with that.
So you know, that's important to us. Then we started rolling into things like segmentation. You know, initially the network was flat, which was funny in the early years of Black Hat, and it was definitely
Only the strongest classes survive.
that's true. It was like, are you brave enough and strong enough to survive the Black Hat network? But at a certain point, some of the classes were like genuinely like, okay, here's this thing that we did. Let's try that out on the class next door. And so we're like, damn it, you know, like, okay, so we split up every training class now, so everybody gets their own, and then we do host isolation as well. We try to keep you guys from messing with each other, but again, if you do and you're successful, for the most part, we'll let it go. We'll be like, ha ha ha, look, there it goes. So then we were interested in what was actually taking place on the network. What were the things that maybe we were missing that we wanted to get eyes on? We're like, what's actually happening? How can we get more intelligence into this environment? And so that's where we started to look for a way to do threat hunting in the environment, and that's where we brought in NetWitness. So we write all of the packets that traverse the network to disk. So I know that's a gasp, right? It's not big brothery at all. The reason that we do that is so that if we see an anomaly, we see something that looks like we should actually care, the bad, then we can roll back the clock and say, well, what has that person done over the last 24 hours? Or what have they done over the last 3 days? So that data is all wiped at the end of the show. It is a wipe. Not just a delete. So yeah, we don't keep that. We like our privacy as well. Again, we're not trying to watch what you guys are doing. It's just more about finding people who are coming after us and then taking care of that. Then the malware sandboxing part, that's where Cisco comes in. So we had some interesting information about malware that was being passed over the wire, but we weren't sandboxing it and seeing what it would do. Now we can do that. We see something interesting. We can pull the file out of the stream with NetWitness, throw it into ThreatGrid, detonate it, and actually interact with it in like a glove box environment where we can click on things, and you know, if the malware wants us to like tell it something, we can actually do that, which is really nice. And we've seen some cool malware strains because we have that ability. The endpoint side was something where we were like, okay, clearly you guys aren't going to install anything we give you. That's hey, are you on the Black Hat network? Install this executable. Wouldn't go over well, but we do control the machines that we get for registration. So those are rented by a third party, and we didn't like that. It was who knows what happened to those machines prior. So we provide a golden image with the endpoint agents and stuff on it. They put that onto those laptops, which now we can monitor from the NOC. So we see anything that's happening on that device that's not just registration, we kill it. There's a couple question marks there. I'll get into what that next piece was. And then we're also going to talk about, we wanted to do some automation. What's ways that we could take care of some tasks that we wanted to do, but just didn't have the bandwidth to do. So I'll talk about that. So here's those question marks. If you stop by the NOC, you could see this guy, one of our tier 3 analysts, taking a look at what's, he's just waiting, right? He's waiting. And the reason he's waiting is because starting at the US show this year, we decided to put some honeypots out onto the network to see whether or not something was taking place that we needed to be concerned about. More of a canary, I guess, really, than a honeypot. But that canary lets us know in a very specific way that somebody has poked the bear. So
that's the escalation.
Yeah. So Cookie Monster loses his freaking mind, and we know, okay, somebody's touched something that they shouldn't even be in that part of the network. When it comes to automation, again, there are things that we wanted to do. We'd see clear text account credentials coming across the wire, so things, you know, FTP or email accounts, IMAP or POP3 stuff, and we were like, it would be nice to be able to like inform people, that this was taking place, but we just don't have the bandwidth to do that.
We have in the past, briefly, walking into classrooms and saying, hey,
was an incredibly
somebody's being dumb.
process.
But it was a very manual and obviously dilapidated process for what we're trying to do, and again, the evolution of where we've come.
So we didn't have, with the amount of stuff that we were seeing, going in and trying to find someone, especially through, it's easier to do in the trainings because we know where that individual is. They're in this room, right? So we can go into the room and say, hey, so-and-so, you know, can we talk to whoever? And then we talk to you in the back, and then we're like, oh man, you're passing your stuff, or you're totally owned.
And then they didn't believe us, and we'd tell them their password, and they're like, okay.
Yeah, they're like, no, I'm fine. And it's like, you know, your password is I love kitties. 92. And then you have confirm malware, so stuff where we saw it, but again, we don't know who the user is, or we see crypto mining traffic. These are the notifications that now we're sending using RSA's got an orchestration piece that we have started to use that allows us to send essentially a pop-up, like a captive portal that says, hey, I see your stuff, right? So in this case, this is what it looks like on a mobile device. This is what it would look like on, on a PC or laptop, whatever. And it's just saying, at this point it said email, which we're like, oh, because we were going to email it. And then we decided to do it captive portal, so we edited that later in the week. But yeah, and then they have to basically click through. It just says this is informational. If you're aware that there's crypto mining going on your machine, then carry on. Like that's the best use of your, employer's resources I can think of. And so they just say, okay, great. But then they can reach out to us and say, can you give us more data? We pull, packet captures and screenshots and stuff, and then send it back in an email and say, here's what we were looking at.
So the automation and basically collaboration of all that. So NetWitness gives us that information when we see that. So if we see clear text passwords, or we see the crypto mining, or we see the malware C2 traffic that we can confirm, this is where the automation and basically collaboration between those partners comes in, and what we've been building for show after show after show that is finally getting to the point that it's very useful. It's basically getting to the point that we want, but again, that is continually evolving and not necessarily end state by any means. So at this point, basically, NetWitness provides that information. They've seen that, and we send that information over to Palo Alto, who then adds that user machine into a dynamic user group. That dynamic user group is then put into a policy that provides that captive portal. You will see that, again, click through. Provides a cookie so that you don't keep seeing that. You can clear that if you need, but again, that's why you may or may not see it. And then basically, we're trying to automate these things to give you guys the information that you need, keep you safe, because again, and I'm sure you know as security practitioners, we can do so much on our side, but if you're not aware of what's happening, or even aware that you're owned or mining cryptocurrency for somebody else in some random country, then we're trying to provide you that information, because again, any other day we're on the other side of the fence just like you. So we're just as curious about those types of things as well.
We actually didn't say that. We didn't say what our day jobs are, right? So I'm a full-time threat hunter for RSA. He works for Palo Alto. It didn't go down the way you think it did. Right? It's the other way. Like, we started working with these teams in the NOC, and they were like, we want to hang out with you all year long because you guys are so cool, and we'll give you money to hang out with you. And so now we work there. So that's how cool we are. See us after and bring your wallets.
So again, this is going to be ever evolving. The samples that we can get from NetWitness on those packet captures are then forwarded over to Threat Grid, and everything's detonated that way so we can see those samples, see the bad versus the good bad, and any other information here that basically we can use. We are actively trying to automate as much as possible to add more security and stability to both the environment as well as just informative to the users. So again, huge deal, and we appreciate all the partners and the teams that do this, and it's becoming a very well-oiled machine at this point, but we'll keep chugging, and there's certainly more to keep going on that front, though.
Yeah, it really is, like, it's a team effort, like collaborating on not only just what our expectations are for the NOC, which is all these teams delivering information, and it's been great to watch the relationships between those teams develop as well. So they're like, oh, your product doesn't interface with our product in this way, but that would be useful. And then, like, by the time, like, another Black Hat show rolls around, they're like, hey, we added that feature. So now we work better with your gear. So to see things like that happen is pretty cool. But that collaboration also goes just as, again, we're all security practitioners, right? So, so we had an interesting issue where there was a trainer who was, they were just like, I can't VPN to anything. Actually, the initial statement was, the Black Hat NOC is blanking me. And so
Fill in the blank.
they thought we were we were blocking VPN access or whatever outside of the network, which wasn't the case. And what ended up, we worked through like troubleshooting as a team. We're like, okay, well, what is happening there? Because if we were plugged in, it worked. If we were
well, the VPN would establish you could ping, there's DNS resolution, but large web pages wouldn't load. So it was one of the most frustrating, annoying things. But to the collaboration of those teams, long story short, consumer grade VPNs, if you were on UDP, and if anybody's seen this, like private internet access or anything like that, and you couldn't load a web page while you had your VPN established, change it to TCP. So there were some things that we added that basically there's more overhead from the tunneling to the APs back. So the overhead of the tunneling there, the overhead of your VPN, and then your normal packets, basically large packets were not being fragmented across UDP. So if you saw that problem and you change your VPN to TCP and you can then fragment, you'll be good. But to that point of collaboration, everybody in the NOC was working together to work on this. It had nothing to necessarily do with a configuration issue on any of our sides, if that's the case, but it was a problem that we needed to at least dig down into and solve.
We went full tech support mode.
Full blown.
Full tech support. Like, yeah, it was ridiculous. Like, I actually went to the trainer's classroom and like showed him how to configure things so that I was like, okay, you got to get this config file from here. We're going to do it like full tech support. That's the level of service we provide here at Black Hat. So, I guess we should start out with a.
Yeah, it's a bravo for sure. So you're going to see some.
Yeah, kind of builds. You guys,
please.
Like seriously, in past shows, what we would see was 1 in 3 emails was in the clear. This is here. This is the U.S. Asia figured it out a little while ago. 90% of their traffic is encrypted. But this show.
But that was Huawei doing it for us.
Yeah, no.
Sorry.
But you can see Black Hat USA, 30% insecure protocols. But what we saw this show was actually only 14 unique users were sending their account credentials for email across the wire in the clear. Again, because of the automation piece, we let those 14 know. So here's hoping for 100% next year. But nice.
Call to arms.
Damn, yeah. I mean, we every show when we talk about this stuff, when we do this like debrief, we're like, we'd love to see everything encrypted, and we're almost there, at least for on the email side.
GDPR for the win. So this is the interesting thing, because last year, what did we say? It was mid-50s to 60%, I want to say, was encrypted. 55% encrypted last year. So if we can legislate accepting cookies, and that means that much traffic is encrypted, whether it's through GDPR or whatever else we need to, if you guys are really just launching VPNs, which I don't know with what we just talked about if that was necessarily the case, but if that's what it takes, we as security practitioners in this room and this conference need to be the ones that are protecting ourselves before we can go back to our SOCs or NOCs to work and protect our environment there. So we are this brought a tear to our eyes to see. I literally can't tell you that we were sitting in that chair and didn't believe the stats that he was giving us.
I was literally like, I'm like, is this correct? Are you sure this is right? Yes.
But to that point, again, if that's what it takes, then maybe that's what we should do. But again, a call to arms to you guys as well. The closer to 100 we get, we'll be happy. And again, we're not man in the middling anything, so we wouldn't see it, but that's not our job. We're not here to intercept your traffic and look at the funny videos, although we'd love to get those. That is not the point. So if you encrypt everything, bravo, thank you. We don't want to see it. Let it go.
So this one was interesting. So again, we are trying to protect the network from attack, or protect you guys from attack. In this particular case, we had to protect the outside internet from an attack. So
from us.
From inside Black Hat. And what was happening was there was a training class going on, and I don't know if it was just somebody learned to do something new or whatever. They got excited and were like, let me fire this off at the internet. but somebody was like actively trying to do SQL injections outside of the Black Hat network, right? So I had to go into a classroom and I was like, hi, I'm Grifter, knock it off, like, you know. But yeah, so when we see this happen, again, there's our
Level 3 analyst tells us what room it's in, so the automation of seeing that.
Yeah, so that legitimately is part of the automation. This is a map of the conference space, and then Cookie Monster shows up in whatever room is having the particular issue. So he's down here.
Cookie marks the spot.
Yeah, Cookie marks the spot, and then but yeah, so we went in. So sometimes we're here to protect us, and sometimes we're here to protect you guys from yourselves.
Outbound web shell. So this is an interesting one that basically we saw a web shell. So quick story, and again, trying to tie in collaboration. Palo Alto saw some stuff that basically provided they walked over and talked to the RSA guys to dig into NetWitness a bit. Basically, we saw somebody that had a web shell to a WordPress site that could have been a lab. It may not have been. You know, that's to each their own. But basically, there was a web shell that there was interactions. There was 600-ish commands connecting and receiving back and forth to that web shell, and this was out on the open internet. So again, whether somebody learned something or that's been a while and they just needed to get the updated stats from their back door, then that could have been that as well. So interesting things. All right, this is super frustrating, and you're going to hear me get a little upset here for a minute. So big fix or big broken. So this is not the first time that we have seen this. And again, this is something where we as security practitioners need to be diligent, and this is why we show it, not to call out a company, although that's about to happen. Big fix, if you all know what that is, an IBM product that basically they provide endpoint monitoring for asset management, right? Well, they phone home to their servers and they provide the information for that asset management. Well, apparently within BigFix, there is an option to do that unencrypted. So there's no recon that has to happen, because if you just start watching the network, you can see every version of every software, every piece of software on that machine, and have your full recon done on that machine. So the problem is that it's an option to do that. So if you have BigFix, go back and double check, first of all. And I will say, I won't throw the company under the bus that this was, but this was a security company who's using BigFix, and their laptops, their corporate machines, are phoning home and providing every piece of information in the clear on those security companies' laptops. This shouldn't be an option, but again, to the extent that we'll call out IBM and BigFix, we also will call out you as security practitioners that don't just believe what you see, or don't assume when you're sending back all of the information from your corporate machines that it's encrypted. Trust is one thing, and we talk about trust a lot in the types of protocols and other things that we do, whether SSL, TLS, certificates, etc. Do not trust another company to protect you. You're there to protect your company. Double check it, take a PCAP, look at some things, and make sure that you're not sending every piece of information that a hacker would ever want about those machines. So yeah, hopefully they're listening, because this should not even be an option. It should not be a feature to send things unencrypted over the interwebs.
I checked, it doesn't say FireEye in there anywhere. All right, so move on. Right? These are.
So from angry to like, this is our, man, you guys are ridiculous.
So at the end, man, there's a lot of adult content on this network. It's super weird every show. Like I don't know why I'm always surprised by the amount of it. But
I don't know why we're surprised anymore.
Yeah, so there is a direct correlation between the time of day and when the most adult activity happens, and that is lunch. Cool, I guess. You do you. Technically, that's true. They're doing exactly that. And then also toward the end of the day, so about 4:30, it's like, oh, I don't want to pay for whatever the hotel's offering. I better download some stuff for my extracurriculars later. All right.
We give you even the tops. These, man.
Yeah,
Man.
so-
These butts showed another appearance this year, but it fell off the list.
It did fall
Yeah.
off the list. It did. It was really popular in the U.S.
It was.
So, the longest porn streaming session, 17.67 minutes. That they, that's okay.
Keep trying.
Great.
You can't even don't hit the
What was
button.
it what was it at the U.S. show?
It was like
Long.
50 minutes. We
Yeah,
started. We
it
had
was
to
a lot- it was
clap.
a
We
long-
gave a round of applause.
What was it? What was it? 121 minutes.
Like 2 hours.
2 hours.
Get up
I
that
don't
slide.
And then the shortest, 18 seconds.
Wife chat. It wasn't just wife chat.
What we didn't have at the U.S. show was the sites that they went to. We didn't put that up there. But then, I think it was 11 seconds was the shortest session in the U.S. show. And I was like, what's that link? Because it must be amazing. So we figured we'd share. So yeah.
Keep it weird, Blackhead. Keep it weird.
We like to keep it weird.
Wait, you didn't.
What? Oh, all right. So what is...
We had to run the numbers and crunch it a bit.
So this is the longest, that's the shortest, but overall, all of the adult sessions that took place over the course of Black Hat, we have the MTTO, anybody?
Mean time to
orgasm, right? So, so that is 42 seconds. Solid work. So we will leave you on that light note and just start asking us questions. What do you got?
There's got to be questions after that, though. Let's start going. Go ahead.
Recently, mobile devices started randomizing MAC addresses whenever they connect. What do you think, or how does that impact your stats?
As stats go, as far as stats go, that certainly will. If you're randomizing a Mac every time, that we will see it as a unique device. If you're connecting and reconnecting over and over and over, so as far as that goes, it may be skewed, but we're not doing it just by Mac. Where'd Dennis go? I saw him up here. All right. Just by Mac? We're not doing just Mac, and you can tell us devices. It's Mac and host name. So that may skew.
It might throw the numbers off, but mostly just on the unique devices. So, yeah, go ahead. Anything
Questions?
else? Next.
I can't be the only one in here. No way.
Oh, there you go, right there.
Did the honeypot pick up anything?
Did the
No. So a few things, and that's an interesting piece that
Which, honestly,
I don't dare people. We're not pushing anything, but
it's cool. Leave it alone. Don't go look.
We did not at this show. So there was
yeah.
only a few hits in the U.S. show, and that's, again, some evolution. We won't dig into too far what we're trying to do and kind of where that goes. Obviously, that gives away some of the surprise. But no, there were no hits here, and
I'm okay.
we're curious if other people are curious and not digging in, if that's the case, or if you're just being professional because you're a Black Hat and your company paid. But again, we're certainly okay with that. That's our job, is to provide stable, secure network. If that's the case, then so be it. Over here.
Over there.
So obviously you do a lot of stuff internally on the network. Do you do sort of any monitoring of things coming from external to internal that wasn't kind of triggered by anything internally?
So we actually, well, I won't dig in too far. We do not allow basically anything in. Palo will view obviously as that WAN gateway that they're seeing anything, their logs, and we have information around that. For the most part, everything seems like standard, just something hanging out on the internet that you're just getting scanned and banged up that way. Palo obviously does a great job of securing that and making sure that there's no issues, but there's certainly, we don't allow anything that's not an established session. So. Couple.
Two, yeah.
Have you gotten any legal actions from an overexcited person from Black Hat?
Well, so expand on that when you say legal action from.
I mean,
who?
if there was some SQL injection done on some external website? Have it gone
Oh, yeah.
further?
So is there any legal action, or I think some people will also ask that question, and have the police ever gotten involved, or those type of things? Like, so no legal action outside of what normally like law enforcement would take care of. We have had in the past, not at this show, but at other Black Hat shows, the U.S. in particular, and
People from the show were doing things outside of our network on
Right.
hotel networks, etc. That certainly police were involved, but obviously that has nothing to do with it.
or in some cases, people were planning attacks or screwing around and trolling folks that were in the casino area, but planning those things out in the clear on the Black Hat network over IRC and that kind of thing, where we let the security team know that hey, somebody's heading over to the Luxor to mess with your stuff, because we have those relationships with them. The closest we ever got to, so we have it's like, well, we can call, we have a relationship with the FBI, so we could say, hey, like there's an issue. The closest we ever got was this year at the US. Like, we legitimately thought somebody was like physically in danger. And in the end, like, we were like, after a bunch of investigation, it wasn't the case, and the guy probably would have deserved it anyway. So
Somebody else up here, right? You'd raise your
over
hand.
there.
Sorry, my question was kind of already answered, but I was just going to ask what.
Let's do it again then.
What's the most interesting bit of incident response you've had to do with Black Hat?
Man, most interesting. As far as incident, I wouldn't say that we really do incident response outside of, again, because incident response would be deemed something completely different outside of this environment. So as far as that goes, the most interesting stuff is walking into a room and saying, y'all are being dumb, stop it.
Yeah. Or it's the it's the tier 1 analyst type crap where you're
Right.
like, you ICC2 coming from your machine like this. So it's not that interesting, because we don't see full scale attacks like on this network. There's no, like, it's not like, oh, the Black Hat network's under attack from APTs or whatever. Like, it's
Yeah.
what we do try to do is, because the users do come infected, or they are transmitting stuff in the clear, it's just more about hoping that we can provide feedback enough to where they leave Black Hat actually more secure than when they came. Versus what most people think about the Black Hat network, which is like, I gotta get a burner laptop and a burner phone, and I gotta cut all ties with my family, like that kind of stuff. We're actually trying to make it like the opposite experience.
Kind of change that stigma, if you will, and be willing to use it. Anybody else? Right here.
What is missing? You show an amazing setup, right, of different products. What would you add if you could, like, even if it's not, like, existent?
So showing the partners, you're saying?
If we could add any product to the Black Hat network, even if it doesn't exist, what would it be? Oh, snap. VC right here, like kind of
trying to come up with a good idea for the next. So I mean, as far as
your game.
So as far as that goes, I would say that there's a few things that we're trying to get, that we've played with some other things, and we've added the way that we work with partners, I guess, to that extent. That at the US show, for example, Ekahau, if you've ever heard of Ekahau, brought their wireless spectrum analysis, so that they have some of the really cool tools to do that and basically help do RF scanning, etc., to verify that our airspace is clean, if you will, so that we don't run into issues that way. So there's some things that way that we've worked with other tools. I think as far as our core infrastructure and the main stuff that we have, I feel like we're pretty set right now. And again, we're getting kind of set in that stride and feel comfortable with where we're at. But there's always different tools that we'd love to use that may give us more insight, more information and play with. But I can't really say that there's anything specific that we're looking for. But if there's something out there and somebody wants to, see what it would look like there, we're certainly open to talk. Ekahau worked with, absolutely.
Yeah, like we have brought stuff in that we then have decided, it's not what we thought it would be.
We've tried some different things around wireless, doing some triangulation for other things, but that didn't seem to be as big of an issue. So that, again, it's more around tools and just visualization and what can make our job easier, if you will. Some automation platforms, again, with the evolution of things that we're getting to. But again, for the most part, I wouldn't say that there's anything that we're necessarily searching for yet, but we're always open to looking at different things that may open our eyes a bit more.
All right. Well, we don't want to keep you guys from your
Last
session. Oh, quick.
Go ahead.
Go.
What products are you using for your SIEM and orchestration?
So that is the NetWitness platform.
What
So
platforms are we using for SIM and
Are
orchestration?
you like an RSA plant or something? He's like, what are you using for your SIEM and your orchestration? It's the NetWitness platform.
And then
like where the RSA guys over here, you can pay this guy when you're done. So yeah, that's what we're using.
Thanks so much, guys.